What if your IT service desk helped you put your customers first? It can happen when it's powered by the world's most trusted cloud platform. Industry leaders BMC Software and Salesforce.com offer the fastest growing IT service management solution in the market today, RemedyForce. Let's meet Sally. Last week, Sally requested an iPhone by logging a ticket using the hashtag request capability, found exclusively in RemedyForce. IT got a request, and Sally got her iPhone. All was good until her mobile email stopped working. No worries. Sally jumps on to the RemedyForce self-service portal, and before submitting a service request, she checks out the articles section and quickly finds a possible solution to her problem by resetting her phone. Sally finds easy-to-follow, step-by-step instructions on how to remove and reinsert her SIM card. In this case, resetting her iPhone didn't work, so Sally decides to get help from IT. She gives some information about her problem and submits the service ticket. It's instantly routed to a service desk agent. Now, as an agent, you can start to get more information about Sally's problem. You can quickly tell if there's a problem on a larger scale. Right away, you notice there's planned maintenance. And diving deeper, you see there's a problem associated with the server and email on mobile devices. It also looks like someone has already issued a request for change, so you check out the latest status. Good news! There's a rollout plan, a backup plan, and information about who approved the change. It looks like Sally's email will be back up and running in no time. That makes Sally happy, and you a hero. Email is just one of the many critical business services your customers rely on. And with RemedyForce, you can monitor the status of any business or IT service at a glance. Deployment is fast and easy with no hardware or software to manage. Upgrades are automatic, so you'll always be on the newest version with the latest features. And RemedyForce is accessible to customers anywhere, anytime, on any device. Keep your employees happy and your business thriving. Try RemedyForce today.
Hello everybody, welcome to TFT14 and thanks very much for joining the presentation, Top 5 Issues in ITSM Consulting Projects and its Mitigation Methods. Firstly, about the speaker. Kiran is a certified professional in I2 V3 expert, Prince 2 practitioner, MCP in SharePoint 2003, MCTS in MS Project 2007, Six Sigma Green Belt, ISO IEC 20 Foundation, Test Management Professional Foundation, and Cloud Computing Foundation. I am a BCA and MBA IT graduate from the city Hyderabad, located in the southern part of India. I have totally 11 years of experience in IT industry, 2 years in software development, and 9+ years of hardcore experience in ITSM domain. I'm privileged to work in different roles like service desk analyst, incident analyst, problem analyst, quality assurance analyst, process consultant, project manager, and currently I work as a quality and process manager in Shanghai Business Information Technology. Our company is focused in developing cost-effective and reliable IAM solutions, Oracle Identity and Access Management product implementations, ITIL trainings, and consulting. I'm also the author of the books PDCA for ITIL, published by TSO UK, and Guidance for ITAM, published by servicemanagers.org. Okay, now let's look into the agenda of the session. Firstly, introduction to the topic. Back to basics. Top 5 issues and its mitigation methods. Guideposts for ITSM consulting teams. Common errors in ITSM consulting projects. Metrics for ITSM consulting teams. And then finally, questionnaire session. Introduction to the topic. Today, many ITSM consultants all over the world are facing numerous issues in ITSM consulting projects, be it process consulting or tool consulting. And the reasons are increasing complexity in IT environment, with the evolution of cloud computing, bring your own device, big data, and mobile devices, changing requirements from the clients, evolution of new best practices, standards, increasing compliance requirements from government and legal institutes. And these are so common for all of us, hence I thought of presenting this topic, top 5 issues in ITSM consulting projects and its mitigation methods, so that there are some learnings and takeaways that we can implement in our projects, make our jobs easy, and also make our customers satisfied. This 45 minutes presentation would give you new ideas to identify, analyze, understand, and develop solutions for the common challenges. And here we start. Okay, before I go ahead and talk about the top 5 issues in ITSM consulting projects, let me give you an introduction. So let's go to basics. What is ITSM process consulting? ITSM process consulting is the activity which involves planning, analyzing, designing, evaluating, implementing, and training of the developed ITSM best practices. Also, it involves the continuous improvement initiative. Okay, now let me give you a brief one-line definition of these artifacts: planning, analyzing, designing, evaluating, and implementing and training. Firstly, planning. This stage involves understanding the customer's requirements, scope of the project, time duration of the project, cost of the project, and risks involved. Analyzing. Now, this stage involves understanding the business, functional, and user requirements, issues, goals, priorities, benefits, and also involves collecting the feedback. Designing. Now, this stage involves showcasing the POC, proof of concept, with the help of as-is and futuristic process models, and development of the process collaterals with respect to the requirements. Then evaluating. Now, this stage involves providing quality assurance and control by verifying and validating the developed process collaterals. It also involves taking the approvals, feedback, and recommendations from the stakeholders to improve the design process collaterals. Okay, now implementing and training. Now, this stage involves implementation of the developed processes in live environment through training, with the help of different process collaterals. Okay, now let's go to the next slide. Okay, ITSM process consulting team. Now, let me give you an overview of the process consulting team structure. ITSM process consulting team generally comprises of process manager, process consultants, process developers, quality analysts, and technical writers. Now, let me give you a very brief summary of the roles and responsibilities of these stakeholders. Process manager manages the process consulting works as a project and takes the accountability of process consulting works. Process consultants are responsible for analyzing the requirements, estimating the effort, proposing the methodology, and ensures the process development is done as per the requirements. Process consultants act as an SME and as a liaison between the customer and consulting team. Now, process developers. Process developers are responsible for developing the process collaterals as per the requirements. And process collaterals, comprises of different documentations like process guides, process models, flow charts, metrics, KPIs, metrics, CSS, checklists, standards, policies, templates, and so on. And then process quality analysts. Process quality analysts are responsible for doing the quality check, which is like the verification and validation on the developed collaterals. And then finally, technical writers. Technical writers are responsible for editing, structuring, formatting, and presenting the different collaterals in different formats, like Word document, PDF, HTML format, and in PPT, and so on. Okay, so now here we come to the original and the core topic, top 5 issues in ITSM consulting projects. Firstly, why process definition and implementation? Let's go first straight away tool implementation. Well, this is so common for all of us that we hear from many of our customers saying that, we don't want to go for process definition and implementation because it's going to cost lots of complexity and time and efforts. So we would straight away go for tool implementation. And here I'm going to talk about this issue and will let you know how to get the confidence from customers and how to convince the customers that process definition, predominates the tool implementation. Secondly, understanding the requirements. Okay, now for any project, the most important and foundational activity is requirements gathering. So I'm going to talk about this topic and will let you know how to gather appropriate requirements without missing any important details. Next, selection of the best practice. Fortunately and unfortunately, there are numerous best practices for ITSM today. And that comes up, that arises another issue from the customers saying that, we want to go with only ITIL. We want to adhere or align with only COBIT or MOF and so on. So I'm going to let you know how to adopt and adapt, the best practices, how to bring or how to take the best from the best practices and deliver effective processes. Fourthly, ITIL framework implementation is very costly and time consuming. Okay, now this issue is something you will get to see when you are approaching or when you approach some medium scale companies, because ITIL framework is a humongous framework which consists of 28 processes and 4 functions. Now medium scale companies are very skeptic and are afraid of this humongous framework. So I'm going to let you know how to implement ITIL processes in a phased approach and how to win the confidence of the customers, be it medium scale companies or large scale companies. And then finally, process adherence and awareness. After doing all the process development, the most important thing is process adherence and awareness. Process adherence, with respect to end users, operational staff, and also the managers, and awareness to all its stakeholders. So I'm going to let you know how to bring the process adherence and awareness. So let's move on to the first issue. Why process definition and implementation? Let's go first straight away to implementation. All organizations' primary goal is cost cutting, and they are with the approach, let's go first straight away tool implementation. Organizations assume that straight away tool implementation would reduce the complexity, cost, time, and efforts. And if this is done, it would become a serious issue for the organization. So getting the confidence, enlightening, and convincing the customer that process definition and implementation predominates the tool implementation is the #1 issue for all ITSM consultants. Hence, consultants should enlighten and make the customers understand that no ITSM tool can meet all the business requirements in terms of scope, priorities, integration with other applications, in such a way that it can straight away be deployed in the IT infrastructure and IT staff can utilize and optimize the tools right from the day one. Because every individual organization has its own priorities, requirements, goals, pain points, and risks. Hence, before implementing any tool, an organization has to define a process addressing and consolidating all the objectives, scope, roles and responsibilities, risks, issues, and then accordingly, tool has to be developed or purchased and then deployed. Now let's look into the mitigation method. ITSM consultants should initially begin with simple process diagrams, depicting the as-is and futuristic, would-be status of the IT infrastructure, highlighting and demarcating the scope of the work, communication flow, integrations with other business processes or departments, roles and responsibilities, interfaces, and etc. Secondly, ITSM consultants should educate and elucidate the advantages of process definition, highlighting that process would act as a baseline and as a backbone for IT operations. Process would provide a pre-wise understanding of the long-term and short-term goals. Process would provide better clarity in requirements and information flow. Process would identify risks, issues, and dependencies, which is going to give a better picture for the different stakeholders. Process would provide thorough awareness on the business operations to all its stakeholders, technical, non-technical, management, and everyone. Process would provide easily understandable documentation for all the audiences. So by explaining all these things, the consulting team will be able to win the confidence and convince the customers that yes, process definition is the most important activity and it definitely predominates the tool implementation. Okay, now let's look into the second issue, understanding the requirements. Today, world-class MNCs and consulting firms are executing the ITSM consulting projects in an offshore model, where 1 or 2 process consultants are at customer's location, and the rest of the process development, testing, and documentation team is at offshore location. Well, this is good for customers or clients in consideration of the cost savings, but it would be chaotic for process development and testing team in consideration with unclear requirements, vague knowledge on customers' IT infrastructure, tardy communications, and etc. Understanding the requirements thoroughly and effectively plays the most important task for any ITSM consulting projects. If the consultants and process developers are working in customer premises, most of the discrepancies in understanding requirements can be eliminated with continuous reviews, feedbacks, and discussions. Okay, now let's look at the mitigation method. In consideration with the discrepancies that can happen while working from offshore premises, here are some suggestions how to capture and gather detailed, complete, and accurate requirements. Firstly, define and demarcate the requirements as business requirements, functional requirements, user requirements, design and technical requirements, and non-functional requirements. Now, business requirements are the requirements which is going to talk about the business need and logics. Functional requirements are the requirements which is going to talk about the functionality of the proposed system. User requirements are the requirements which is going to talk about the requirements with respect to different types of users, like end users, administrators, and different types of roles that is defined in the system. And then design and technical requirements. Now, these requirements are the requirements which is going to talk about the architecture, enterprise architecture, high-level design, low-level design, and technological aspects like availability, capacity, and so on. And non-functional requirements. Now, these requirements are going to talk about the look and feel aspects like user-friendliness, accessibility, localization, and so on. Secondly, perform CPOC analysis. We all know about the CPOC analysis. And I want this analysis to be performed with respect to the requirements, objectives, issues, risks, dependencies, and etc. So that we are gathering every details, all requirements with respect to the suppliers, inputs, process, outputs, and customers. And then Moscow analysis. Perform Moscow analysis on requirements to identify and understand, what is must, what is should, what is could, and what is would be in the future. Now, by doing this Moscow analysis, the consulting team will be able to do the prioritization of the requirements. What are the requirements which is critical, must, and what is should, what is could, and what is would be in the future. So by doing this, you will be able to gather accurate and appropriate requirements for the tool consulting or for the process development. Now let's get to the third issue, selection of the best practice. Unfortunately and fortunately, there are many best practices available for ITSM. That arises an issue for customers, which makes them to think profoundly, what is the best practice that I should adopt in my organization? And another issue is insistence from customers to define processes as per a specific best practice only. For example, if a customer is from America, he insists that he wants to define ITSM processes only as per COVID. If a customer is from UK, he insists that he wants to implement the processes as per ITIL only. Another customer says that I want to implement the processes only as MOF. These acute biased preferences from the customer makes the consultant's job more difficult and takes them to a groove. Now let's look at the mitigation method. ITSM consultants should educate the clients that adherence and alignment to a specific ITSM best practice only is not a good idea, as there would be pros and cons for every best practice. So implementing ITSM processes as a specific best practice would also carry forward the flaws, misses, risks into the organization's environment. Hence, the efficacy of an ITSM consultant is to take the best from all the best practices and customize them as per the needs of the business requirements. So, an ITSM consultant should refer and take the guidance from all the best practices, standards, and his previous consulting experiences to develop effective processes and respective collaterals. For example, a consultant can refer ITIL or MOF books to define the process activities, and workflows, and carpet books to define the governance mechanism, controls, checklists, generic goals, roles and responsibilities, and etc. And standards to define SOPs, guidelines, auditing checklists, and so on. So this way, consulting team can refer different best practices and bring out the best from all the best practices. Okay, now the fourth issue. Implementing ITIL framework is very costly and time-consuming task. Generally, customers, especially medium-scale companies, are skeptic of ITIL framework implementation and its positive results, as ITIL is a humongous framework which consists of 28 processes and 4 functions. And, well, obviously, this involves great costs, resources, and time. Okay, now let's look into the mitigation method. Implementing all ITIL framework will evidently cost millions of dollars and 4 to 5 years of time duration, without any doubts. Hence, ITSM consultants should scope the ITSM process development project into a phased approach. Consultants should enlighten the customers that the consulting team and organizational IT management would identify the most critical prioritized issues first, and then they would implement necessary processes or functions in a phased approach, which is going to deliver visible results after every process implementation. Consultants should identify the major pain points in infrastructure, its root causes, dependencies, and then accordingly, they should determine which process would be apt to start with and which process can bring in results for the IT department and organization. For example, a company is having issues with its IT, where there are regular outages and also takes very long time to restore the services. And let's assume there are no defined processes. Now, a consultant would analyze and assess the complete business scenario in terms of outages, time taken to fix the issue, time taken to restore the services, what was the reference material used to fix the issues, how many technical members were involved, and then what is the root cause of the issues, and so on. And then he would define a service desk function as service desk is the function, which will act as a single point of contact, which aims at, being, a single point of contact for information, requests, and complaints. And then after doing the service desk function, it would be good to start with incident management process, as incident management is the process which aims at restoring the services as soon as possible. And then after defining the incident management process, it would be good to start with problem management process. Problem management is the process which aims at, figuring out the permanent fixes, identifying the root causes, and ensuring, there is continuous and stable services. In this way, scoping of ITSM processes demonstrates benefits in short time period and will also align towards the long-term goals. And the fifth issue, process adherence and awareness. In one of my consulting experience, I have understood that some of the key stakeholders were reluctant to follow the process, and some were not even aware of the process. Effective process definition is a very vital task for organizations, and strict adherence, complete awareness on defined process is explicitly mandatory. Among the 4 P's, people, processes, products, and partners of ITSM, the first P, people, acts as a main foundation and is also a secret for successful implementation to demonstrate positive results. And this people involves IT management, operational managers, administrators, and also other staff, including end users. All of these stakeholders should adhere and have perfect awareness of the developed processes for effective and efficient management of IT. Now let's look into the mitigation method. Involvement of all the key stakeholders, right from the process planning, implementation, training, is very much necessary for the success of consulting projects. Involving the key stakeholders in the brainstorming sessions, conducting regular reviews will enable in getting frank opinions, important suggestions, and their observations with respect to their previous experiences. Also, it gives them a feeling that the process was developed based on their opinions and reviews, which makes them to follow and adhere to the process very strictly. Not only that, it also helps in winning the hearts of stakeholders for better human relationship and also for further business opportunities. Secondly, process awareness among the stakeholders can be developed by conducting regular trainings, assessments, quizzes, and so on, developing a management initiative that rewards the staff who scores maximum in the assessments, creating simple and understandable process diagrams and posters and placing them in every kiosk and meeting rooms to propagate the importance of processes, creating posters highlighting the IT benefits and business benefits. And by doing this, the consulting team would be able to bring appropriate adherence from all the stakeholders and good awareness to all the stakeholders. Now, the next topic, guideposts for ITSM consulting teams. Okay, here I have mentioned 4 guideposts or guidelines for the ITSM consulting teams. Firstly, ITSM consulting team with real experience and knowledge. I've seen management hiring and promoting staff as process developers or consultants just because they don't have technical skills and they have stayed in a company for long term in an organization. And this is a blunder. Select the ITSM consulting team and process designing team who has real experience in ITSM, who has seen real scenarios in ITSM. As people who have seen real issues can bring impeccable solutions based on their experiences, technical knowledge, and their innovative thinking. Having theoretical knowledge from books, certifications is good, but not strong enough to develop efficient processes or solutions. Hence, ITSM consulting team should have real experience in ITSM. Secondly, ITSM process designing is not copy pasting. It's so shocking that I've seen some consultants who do copy pasting from ITIL books and call it as process development. Well, ITSM process designing is not copy pasting and rephrasing the content from ITIL or MOF or copy books. It is bringing out the practical solutions for the real issues happening at customer premises. Hence, the ITSM consulting team should have people who have real experience in ITSM department, not people with incompatible experiences. An ITSM consulting team doesn't require a group of evangelists from ITIL or MOF or COBIT. It requires ITSM consultants who are cognizant about different best practices, who knows the pros and cons of different best practices, who can bring out of the box solutions. And hence, I would say ITSM process designing is not copy pasting. Guidepost number 3, risk analysis and mitigation must for every ITSM consulting project. Risk analysis and mitigation is the area which is ignored in many of the ITSM process consulting projects, leading to failures or inappropriate process developments. Okay, now let's understand what are the typical risks involved in consulting projects. Requirements creep and changes in requirements, schedule lags, lack of stakeholders involvement, and lack of reviews while processes are being developed, ineffective communication among the stakeholders, ambiguity in process documentation deliverables. Okay, so now these are the typical risks. So hence, process consultants should always have a constant watch on risks and plan appropriate mitigation methods. Now let's look at the 4th guideline or the guidepost, selection of the right tool. ITSM tools are very necessary as it can eliminate the routine human work and human errors. It automates the routine task, saving time. It follows a defined workflow without reinventing procedures and taking approvals again and again. Hence, ITSM tools are very much necessary. Now let's understand, the criteria for tool selection. Criteria for tool selection should be primarily based on organization strategy. Okay, organization strategy, this involves understanding organizational goals, objectives, priorities, and policies. Then core functionality. This involves understanding the business requirements, ITSM processes which are already defined, and end-to-end management of IT services. And then cost and pricing. Now this involves understanding allocated budget, product costs, license costs, and support costs. And then organization's infrastructure and architecture. Now this involves understanding hardware, software, and enterprise architecture. And then usability and visualization. Now this involves understanding the look and feel, features like what you see is what you get feature, searching ability, alerting mechanism, analysis, and mining. Okay, so these were the 4 guidelines that I wanted to, inform or, to share to all the ITSM consulting teams. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Now let's look into the common errors. Common errors in ITSM consulting projects. Error number 1, consideration of ITSM process implementation program as a typical IT project. ITSM process implementations should never be treated as a typical IT projects, which has specific start date and end date. Typical IT projects deliver outcomes after the project is completed, and the stakeholders would be able to experience the value very clearly. But ITSM process implementation programs are not like typical IT projects which show off the outcomes or return on investment or value on investment right after completing the project. Since process definition is like the directives or blueprints which has to be followed by the operations, and then the operations and management teams would be able to see the difference in outcomes. Secondly, ITSM process development projects can never be marked with an acute end date, as ITSM process development is always bonded with continuous improvement approach, which gives continuous or periodic feedbacks And with respect to the feedbacks, the process has to be redefined or updated. Hence, organizational top-level management should understand that process definition and implementation is not a typical IT project. Rather, it should be considered as an ongoing program. Okay, now error number 2, appointing inappropriate people for the most crucial roles. Today, in many reputed organizations, management presumes that a 2-digit years of experience in some XYZ roles is an asset for an organization. And some management folks assume gray hair as a symbol and exemplification of knowledge. For example, a person having 10 to 15 years of experience in car driving is good enough for driving a car only and cannot drive an airplane with previous car driving experience and skills. Assigning well-versed and knowledgeable resources as subordinates and underdogs for some dumb people will be the greatest error. Okay, hence the organizational management should understand and select the resources with respect to the right knowledge, who has exposure, experience, and skills, and accordingly, they should appoint the resources. And then finally, no encouragement and support for grooming consultants' knowledge. ITSM consulting team needs good encouragement and management support for grooming the staff's knowledge on evolving, ever-changing best practices. As it is very much evident that the inception of new best practices, standards, and methodologies is happening continuously year after year. In the same way, consulting team should be equipped with updating or evolving knowledge areas. As said before, ITSM consulting team doesn't require ITIL or COBIT or MOF evangelists. It needs consulting team who has knowledge on all of the contemporary best practices, standards, and methodologies for bringing out the best from all the reference materials. Hence, management should identify the right human resources and then support them without showing any bias. Let me elucidate the statement. Management should identify the right human resources, understanding who wants to snug in a company like a bug and who has passion and innovative thinking, and then support them without showing any bias based on the years of experience in an organization, nationality, sex, religion, and caste, and so on. Okay, now, finally, the last slide of this presentation, metrics for consulting teams. Okay, now in the last 1 year, I have received many emails from my colleagues and contemporaries asking for the metrics for consulting teams. So here I am sharing to all of you. The first metric will be time taken to develop a process and its collaterals. Secondly, number of resources and man-days required for the process development. Number of resources and man-days required for process testing. Number of resources and man-days required for technical writing. Number of defects found by process testing team. Number of defects found in process documentation, like spelling mistakes, confusions, grammatical errors, and so on. Number of defects found by end users and customer teams. Number of documentation deliverables available on a process. Number of non-conformances found in audits with respect to the process. Number of areas where there is no documentation available. Number of process trainings provided. Customer satisfaction rating on the process documentation provided. And finally, customer satisfaction rating on process trainings and trainer. And with this, we complete this presentation, top 5 issues in ITSM consulting projects and its mitigation methods. So time for questions.